Welcome to CATtheMinion Patreon. I'm actually doing a how-to art video because I have something that I was compelled to start. So I've got some junk newspaper here, and I've got masking tape, and I wasn't sure whether I needed the skinny one or the fat one, so I got both of them out of my little pile there. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be making, would be sort of like a paper mache mock-up for a stuffed animal to make a pattern. But because I'm going to do it the fast and lazy way, I'm just going to tape the paper with the masking tape instead of bothering to get out the bowl and the glue and the water and all that bullshit. So it's going to get a little noisy, so prepare your earballs. I'm making something small. Now, I've heard that you can do this out of clay, out of modeling clay, which might make it slightly more accurate. But this is kind of fun for me a little bit. As long as I can get a shape to be somewhat how I want it to be. And again, I'm making a small stuffed animal. I'm not making some ginormous thing like I did last time. But even in the... really looking at it, was putting stuff. I'm going to take a smooth piece and wrap it around. Get like a tube going. Now, what I'm making is actually going to be roughly horse-shaped. So I do want to leave it open a little bit on top. I'm going to make a little head and neck. This is just kind of how I do it. I suppose there could be a point where people would want like a wire form, especially if you're making a huge thing, which I didn't do last time. But usually the paper and the masking tape is stiff enough to make something that stands up. Again, roughly heart-shaped. Not too shabby. Like a smaller piece, just because I feel like I'm neglecting the thinner masking tape. I guess most people use washi tape these days, but it seems kind of pointless to use something decorative that you're just going to peel off anyway, but maybe that's just me. Go to the hardware store and get some fucking masking tape. Sort of horse face shape kind of situation here. Now, in terms of making a stuffed animal, it would behoove you to make a line for the ears and then just sort of add them in separately, or have like a seam there to pop them in after. I feel like this is pretty good. I feel like this is also bigger than I wanted it to be already. Like I intended it to be smaller. Crunch it down a little bit. I guess that's alright, because really the rest of it's just going to be legs. I feel like the neck should be fatter. When I made my big pony for my little second cousin, the neck gut was like a little bit too fat. Just a little plastic surgery here. This is supposed to be symmetrical. So essentially when I cut a pattern, I'm only going to do half of it. But in order to figure out what the hell I'm doing, I kind of need it to be fully three-dimensional. So we can get a little thicker in the chest. Okay. So I don't know if you can even see what I'm doing, but here's roughly a horse body. Now I'm going to put legs on this. And the way I'm going to do the legs is I'm going to roll them and then stick them on, and I'll come back with that in a minute. So I want these legs to be fairly tight, and I want to like start rolling them around something thin like this paintbrush, just to get them started here. Come on. Probably about as tight as I'm going to be able to get that. Reminds me of making candy canes in kindergarten. Oh, I probably should have started it at the corner. That would have been easier, huh? Let's see. No, I want them to be straight. Never mind. I'm going to do it this way still anyway. I changed my mind again. Get the funny pages over here. Let's move over. Just taping these corners down. So here I have what should be approximately one leg. Let's see how long I want that. I actually need that longer, but I think that's about right. I'm going to tape that down for a minute. I'm just going to do another one the same way. Just going to roll it up with starting with something skinny to try to get it fairly tight. Now, if you were making something with fatter, stubbier legs, it would be a different story. You could just make a lump and then tape it with the flat piece around with it. It's not working out that well. Maybe I will start on the corner. Maybe that'll work better. Just start on the corner and roll it better. I think that's working. I feel like I'm super failing at this in ways that I'm not quite prepared to deal with. Not as tight as the other one, and I don't think I like it, but I'm gonna just do more legs, and then I'm gonna come back and with the camera in a second. Alright, so I've got 7 more of these paper rolls because I'm making a small Sleipnir, at least I hope that's how that's pronounced, plushie to go with the print that I made of the drawing that I made. So I'm just kind of haphazardly attaching these. If I look at the bottom, it might make more sense. I might have to flesh out the butt a little bit more. It looks a little bit weak. But I'll see in a minute. Got a song stuck in my head. And I can't remember who sings it. One of those 60s kind of things. I saw her again last night. I know that I should have. Alright, I might adjust this more before I get a final situation going here. Now this isn't going to actually stand up right now because I don't have trussing in the legs. But I'll give a general idea of what I'm going for here. So I need to angle that a little differently. That's going to be terrifying. I love it. This is kind of the long and short of it. Well, it really is too thin on this side, though. I had to take this leg off and fix that. I'm a horse with a janky butt. Feel like it doesn't really matter if the mock-up is lumpy because the fabric kind of has its own situation going on afterwards. There we go. That looks a little bit more like it's supposed to. Even. So take the legs. Now the way that these are on here, there's going to have to be a seam, and then I'm going to have a seam in the middle so that I can pop it open and get the trusses into the legs where they attach, and then sew it up in the middle. I have to figure out how these legs are going to work too. These aren't all the same length, but when I cut them for the fabric, they will be. Just get them on the other side real quick. It's really bothering me that I can't remember who sings that, and I don't feel like looking it up right now. That Beau Brummels or something. The Vogues, maybe. This leg is small and I don't know why. Probably because I was running out of the good paper. Attach it to this part. Just be smaller. Put it on the back side over here. There. It's also a little bit short, but I can fix that when I cut stuff out and make a pattern. So to get if I don't rip the whole thing, just roughly put the legs on both sides. Now if you were doing a normal horse, obviously you'd only have 4 legs. It's really fat. I kind of want the bottom part of the legs to be longer so that he'll sit up high like this. I want to get like little wooden, like little wood chunks, or like a magnet, something that'll make it clomp when you put him down. Again, this is like bigger than I wanted it to be, but I don't know how to make it any smaller right now. I could cut the pattern and then scale it down, like scan them and scale it down a little bit, and that would be easier. Scan them and then shrink them a little bit and then print it out. If it's too small though, I wouldn't be able to do it on a sewing machine. So this is essentially the mock-up, and I just have the legs in here because that's kind of where I'm going to put a seam. And again, this is going to be a little bit more like cheek by jowl there. I'm trying to make this form pretend symmetrical because I'm going to cut one half and then mirror it for the pattern. I still have to do the whole thing. And again, I'm going to have a line up here on top of the head where the ears are going to go. Just what I did with my big pony that I made. So if I were going to go in with this, put some more tape to hold that on. This again, this is the half-assed way to paper mache. Just with the masking tape. Okay, this is how I did the form for my painting. So I know that when I finish this, I'm going to make a line up here to stick ears on there. So I might want a seam up there. Or I might have to cut a hole in the piece of fabric and then stitch them in. So the next step, really, in turning this into a pattern, I'm going to have to take the legs off, but I have an idea of where they are. Now, when I did my big horse, I was able to build the legs into the pattern. I only need to do one half, though. I guess this is supposed to be the good side over here, so I should have marked this side. So when I do the pattern, I'm going to put my leg line to be here. So I'm just going to pop all these legs off for now, just to get an idea of where they were going to go. There we go. So I'll make a separate pattern for these. It'll just be, you know, a flat piece of cloth, and I'll have it sewn on the end, and then make a little seam and pop it over a truss, and it'll be open on the end and sewn onto the other part of the seams. It sounds complicated, but it'll be way less. This is probably going to be the easiest stuffed animal I've ever made. So in order to turn this into a pattern, I got this big honkin' roll of plastic wrap. There's a hole in it already. Usually I gotta pick it up and move it all the way around the thing. This is gonna be easy. It's so small. So I need to get it, have coverage all the way around, but I don't want it to be too bulky. Actually, let me start with the head up here so I can get it fully covered. So I've got the plastic wrap around the mock-up, and I'm gonna actually end up taping this whole thing, but I want to get it attached. So where I've got it around the neck here, I'm going to close it up and hold it down. And I'm just going to roll it until I get full coverage. So I'm going to pin it down again. I'm going to pin it down here as well. This is so easy, it's so tiny. Okay, so now that I've got it all the way around, I'm going to cut my plastic wrap. Put it back on the thing over here. Actually, I think that goes the other way. There. Like half of the box left. So I'm just going to get this tidied up and wrapped all the way around. I'm just going to tack it down with my masking tape. Now the point is, now that I've got a barrier between the paper mache mock-up and the plastic wrap, well, I mean, the plastic wrap creates a barrier between this and the masking tape I'm going to put over it. So I want this whole thing to be covered, because this is what I'm going to draw my pattern on. So before I get this totally covered up, I'm just going to put my leg line back on there. Just gonna wallpaper that shit right on there. This is so tiny, it's gonna take like no time at all. This is amazing. Tape. Oh, I got a gap, I gotta go back. Mind the gap. Look at that, it goes all the way around. It's so little. It doesn't even matter if I do this on camera, it's only going to take a minute. See, I got some crossover there, but that's alright. It doesn't matter if it's 2 layers in one spot. Just a little butt patch on here. The other half. Now, even though I'm only going to use half of this pattern, I'm still taping the whole thing, because it needs to be even to a certain degree. Now, I did make a pattern for my Archaeopteryx plushie that was not symmetrical, and that is a kind of a nightmare. This guy up here, asymmetrical pattern. I don't recommend doing that as your first plushie ever. It took me like a year and a half just to get it right, because I did everything wrong that you could possibly do wrong when I was doing it, when I was working on it and trying to make it. Horsey, horsey. There. Oh, this is going to be so easy compared to the other ones. It's going to take me like an hour to make it. Now, this is a little bit loose on the neck. Shit, I just messed that up. So I'm going to tighten it around the neck a little bit. Just some cross strapping. Crossfire. Okay. There. Just really getting the whole thing. Again, on something that's like the size of a person, this took a long time, and like a whole roll of tape. This is easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. Like a little soccer ball. I love that tape gum smell. Get the neck in there. There. Alright. And the last little bit here. Now, I don't really need to tape up the legs to make a pattern. I'm just going to trace it on a piece of paper. So I'm not that worried about that. More of these. The other side of the face that I'm not actually going to be drawing on. Just going to rip that. I need one more little thing for the nose. Is it boring? Probably boring. But there, that only took like 5 minutes. Or less. Alright. I usually use a thicker Sharpie to draw the lines, but because this is small, I'll just use the one that I've got here. So I know already that I'm going to divide this in half. So I can go straight here and go right down the middle and know that I'm going to have a seam here, which is great because I'm going to be able to pop a tail in right in there. It's not a butthole, it's a tail placement. No, actually, if it's tail placement, it should be a little bit higher, though. This is probably easier with a fatter Sharpie, but anyway. Just gonna give myself a midline here. So I know when I come back in, I'm gonna probably want a seam here to put the ears in. This is a little bit uneven, but I tried to make this side a little bit more fleshed out, so because I know that I'm gonna want it that way. So this way I can just do a quick mirrored seam here, and I know that I want my legs to come in here, so I'm gonna have another seam, and it should be right kind of where this shoulder is. So I'm going to have a piece here that's like the bottom. So this is just sort of figuring out where the other seams go, because this isn't all going to be one piece. But I feel like there's probably going to be a seam where the neck is. I'm not that great at this because sometimes my pattern pieces are kind of weird. And there's probably going to be a seam over here somewhere. So I'm not sure if I want to cut here and have another piece yet or not. There's going to be like, maybe I could have a straight piece that comes in like here, and then just kind of a roundy piece to put up there on the top. Because that looks like it's fairly simple. Let's try to get a couple of flat pieces. It's sort of guesswork. I'm not like awesome at making patterns. But I do want to have a definition here where the head joins, so I want it to have a little bit of a tightness in the seam. So I'm going to do that. This is kind of small, so it might end up just being like I'm going to have to cut it here and pop it open and not have an actual different seam there, because it's going to be pretty small. On my big horse I had to make separate panels for the top. So I might come in like this and have a top panel for the face. And hopefully this side panel can pop open and be one piece. And then maybe right here there'll be like another little panel. So that's it. But what I have to do when I'm doing this is I have to letter them. And I know that I'm going to have my legs at 4 different placements here. Where the fuck are they? So even though I'm having, this is my leg seam here, right? And I have 4 legs, so I need 4 placements. Kind of like so. So even these are going to have marks. So I have an A corner here and another A corner. And I'm going to, even if I don't have a seam here, I want to be able to match it up. So I'm going to mark that B. And even down here, when I match this up to the other half, I'm going to want a couple of marks. So I put the C here and a D. And that might give me where I'm sewing it in. So I'm going to make this E. All of these corners would be E here. I did this the hard way the first time and I had to put everything back together. So that's F, G. Actually, I should make, well, whatever, H. I. Make it easier to distinguish between the other ones. J. When I run out of letters, I just do double letters. And it's like if you don't do this while it's still on the form, it's going to be a disaster. Sometimes I'll do one like in the middle here if it's a longer segment. Where do I leave off? M. I better make a mark under that to distinguish it from W. This is an L, even though it looks like a V. So right here where I accidentally drew a butthole, I'm going to M, so that's N. And I'm going to put a P here where the tail goes. I'm going to put an O over here on this mid seam that I put. And this is an actual piece here. So I did P, so this is going to be Q. And I'll make one in the middle here. R. And I'll make one in the middle here, S. And this is the same thing goes over here. I've got kind of a corner here, so I'm going to make sure that I have one there. That's going to be there. And just a couple of match-up lines here. The corner can be an X. So I have 3 pieces meeting there, and they're all going to be X. X, Y. No, yeah. TBW, X, Y. And then C. And then I gotta go to AA. CC. Oh, that should be AAAB and then AC if I'm doing it right. Okay. AC. And then this would be a joint over here. So just a spot in the middle to match up. AE, and this is AE. This is AF. I need a point there to match it. Is this boring? No, this was already... That one's not labeled yet. Okay. AH. This is AI. It's artificial intelligence right near the mouth. The nose here. And there's a little bit of a curve here, so I'm going to have to mark that too. I'm going to have a joint here. And a point here. AL, so... Where is this? Oh, that's AK, and this is AJ here. Okay. See, it can be difficult to remember where the hell you are. Okay, JKL, so this is AM. AM radio. M, AN, AP. And then I'll put one more here, AQ. So that should take care of most of those match-up lines. I'm going to put AR here to match up this line as well. So this is pretty much labeling this thing as best as I can figure out right now. And when I go to lay it flat, I need to figure out where my pattern pieces are, so I'll be right back with that. Alright, one thing that I find that's really important when before I cut this off of the mock-up, is that I've got to have a drawing of how the pattern pieces go together on the system. So I know I'm doing a half and half, but I've got a piece of paper here. It's just printer paper. So I'll use the pen over here apparently. And I'm just gonna, you know, I could trace it on there, but I want to draw it a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna get the general shape of my mock-up here. So I know I'm going to have the tail coming out here, but I also know that this is a 3-dimensional thing, and I want to try to draw the top part of this as well. And this is going to be more of a shape like this. And I'm going to have a piece on the bottom that's rounded. I might redo this because it's a little bit... This piece comes out like this more. I probably will trace over this. I'm just trying to sketch it out a little bit of where these pieces go. head piece here, and the face piece is kind of like that. So I need a thicker marker. Gotta love that sound, right? This is just a general map of where my pieces are going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's actually a small piece back here as well. And I might redo this later if I want a good, like, crib sheet. Is that the right word? I'm not sure. Oh, okay, this whole neck thing goes like this. So it's a longer neck piece. And then the back comes in like that. Okay, so this just gives me an idea of where my pieces go. So when I take it apart, I know what I'm doing. And then I can just label the joints in the same way. And I'm probably going to redraw this again because it doesn't look right. I'll come back with that in a second. Alright, so I've taken this pattern, and you see where I started trying to sketch out the shapes of how they are on here in a three-dimensional way. So I used the pencil and I sketched them in a little bit more delicately, and I've gone back and taken all of the marks that I've made on here and copied them onto my sheet. This is going to tell me how I'm assembling this. Now, I didn't put the ears in, so I put the ears in. Times 2 ears, and that's going to be... Alright, so I've got my ears tucked in there. I've got the tail sketched in, and I've got these sockets where the legs are going to be. So this is my half of the pattern that I'm going to use, and then I'm going to copy it. And I've drawn these extended arrows out here just to tell me that this is where it connects to the matching half, because I haven't done that before, but I decided it would make it easier this time. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it off of the little mock-up, because I remember that I've got this layer of plastic wrap. So I'm just gonna, it doesn't matter if the interior gets cut up. These are probably, let me get my smaller scissors. I've got about 6 different pairs of scissors. I have my older scissors for junkier three-dimensional stuff. I've got paper scissors, so I have 5 scissors, and I've got the sewing scissors and then the fabric scissors. The difference between the sewing scissors and the fabric scissors is the sewing scissors are this big and the fabric scissors are this big. That's very, I don't need to be cutting through the friggin'... See, once I get this started, I can see where the outer layer starts, and I won't have to be cutting through as much of the other shit underneath, because the top layer is actually quite thin. Now this method also works for making patterns for dolls. To get a good torso mold, I wrapped the plastic wrap around my size Barbie so I could do the bodice for her dress. Can't really see much yet, but it's like peeling an egg when you still want to keep the shell. There off. Plastic. Because the whole point, oh come on, with me here. I'm getting too much of the paper underlayment. I might, let me see if it's easier with an X-Acto knife. Where's my shit? X-Acto knife. This is definitely going to cut through the extra layers. It's also going to make the blade sticky, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. Come on, ye hoe bag. It's a good way to cut my hand. Of course, it's not exactly as accurate on the line when I'm just flopping the knife around, but it'll get me through those tighter curves. Okay. So, pop off the side that I don't need first, because I don't care if this gets ripped. Sometimes when the plastic is double layered, it doesn't want to come off that easily. I'm just going to cut through it again. Keep my lines here. Ow, my back. Let's give that the old snippy snip there. Alright, so this is the half that I'm not using. You can see the interior here. I'm going to just hopefully just pop this right off of here. Sometimes it's the different layers of tape stick to each other. I just got to deal with that. I got my peeled little egg over here. See, some of this plastic wrap is stuck to the underlying tape, so I'm just going to cut that. Or because I had pinned it down. There we go. Freedom. You can see I split his back. It's alright, because I don't really need this. That can go right in the stove. Okay, so now I have my little half a horse here. Let's see, got a little scoop. So the way that this works, I need some more paper. Probably not this much, but that's alright. Paper. I don't need this over here either. Okay. Alright. I'll put my knife away so I don't stab myself with it. Okay, so the way that this works is now I'm going to cut these on the seams that I drew. It's such a weird angle. I'm trying to be as smooth as I can with it. So this piece is pretty flat. Sometimes they might just be a little bit bubbled up, but the fabric's going to stretch anyway. But some pieces aren't going to be flat. And I can see that I've got some plastic sticking out on the edge here. And I'm going to just cut that off because it's going to be in the way when I trace this. Oh, I didn't label the fucking pieces. I gotta number the pieces. One should number the pieces before one cuts them apart. So let me just, where's the bottom? Yeah, this is the bottom. So I'm going to number this one. I should have done that while it was still on the body. 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, this is a lot easier. When I did the body for my painting, it was 51 pieces, and it took me a week to sew it just to sew the panels together, and then it took me 3 months to sew it to the canvas. There's a lot of hand sewing involved in that. I tell you, let me tell you, it's a pain in my ass. I think my Archaeopteryx plushie has like 30 pieces. It's a cakewalk compared to that painting, I tell you. Okay, so this is a solid piece, but you can see that it's going to have a bend in it, and I'm going to cut it here where I made this line. So that way when I do that, I'm going to be able to lay it flat. And it's not quite flat here, so I might want to give it a slice up here to give it a rounded jaw. And in that case, I'm going to give it an additional... Where did I draw that? Okay, I had a point here that I did not label, AG, and I'm going to run it up here and make a BB, because I know I haven't used that yet. So sometimes I have to add additional lines when I'm cutting the flat surfaces. Now, where the hell was that? There should be an AG, yep, so that's right here. So I have the AF that I didn't label, and I have an AF here, and then the AG here. Okay. It makes it easier when I've got everything else labeled to just go back and add those in. Now this is rounded as well. What is this? Number 6. And I didn't label them on here like an asshole. You gotta label them on here too, or it doesn't make any sense. This is 6. This is 7. This is 5. This is how you can tell it's homemade pattern. And I got 3 is on the back, and there's the old cat screaming, and 1. And this is going to be 8 over here with the legs, which is coincidental because there's 8 of them. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm sure this is boring as hell. So piece number 6, it's got a little bit of a curve to it, but I'm going to try to keep it flat and just let the fabric stretch itself out. This came out pretty flat, so I'm going to leave that as is, but I'm going to cut off this excess, get rid of some of this excess plastic that's stuck to the underside. These scissors seem not that sharp because they're warped. So those are my like cutting of the heavy things. So that's fairly flat. This one's fairly flat. This one's meant to curve around the buttocks, and I've got this line here at R, or at T, whatever, at T. And I'm going to extend it down a little and give it a BC as well. So when I bring this line down, I'm going to make a BC. So I've got that matching. I'm sure that doesn't really register on the camera. So this is, what is this? This is the underbelly, so that should be all right. So because this is a simpler pattern, it doesn't require that many different pieces. These aren't all going to fit on one thing. Now I am going to trace this leg. I might need to either tape 2 of these together or use one of my drawing papers that's bigger, but I can do that after because I'm not going to bother with that just yet. It's just going to be like a straight, like fold it in half and sew it in kind of a thing, so it's just going to be very simple. Okay, so what I do then is I've got this labeled and then I just trace the pieces. So let me trace it with a pencil because I've got this 7mm here that's quite thin. I'll get See, I've got plastic in the way there. It's going to be slightly off. And I'm just trying to get it as straight and flat as I can while I trace this out. It doesn't have to be super perfect, but I want to make sure I get my cross lines right where they are on here. Here and here, here. Okay, so hopefully you can see where I've drawn those out. So now when I do make this pattern, I might want a little bit more space around it. I've got just enough for where seam allowance is going to be. So when I actually draw out the pattern piece before I cut it out, and I have, I mean, this is fairly small, so the 1/4 inch of seam allowance, or slightly more, the 3/8 of seam allowance should be fine. So I know that I'm going to cut 2 of these on a fold because they're going to be opposites. And I need to match up the lines in here when I go to make the piece. But I'm going to also draw the inner line again. When I draw the seam line, though, it's just there to remind me that that's where I need to cut. Sometimes I'll cut out, like I might want the pattern piece just to be to here only, because I'll have to trace it out, but I want these marks to be exact. So, but I could always just pull some thread through there and have like a little colored tuft. It just depends how you want to do it. I could poke holes in here and then put a pen through there to mark my fabric. It's just so that I make sure that I cut out the seam when I go to do it. So I'm going to mark these. What is that? Y, P, N, A, M. F, this is X up here, and this is a W, V, S, Q, O, and E. Okay, so now I've got this whole thing marked out, and I'm just going to do that for all of the 7 body pieces, and then I'm going to make one for the legs, and then I'll show you once those are all done. And then we're just going to cut these out. I should use my paper scissors, but I've got the other ones right here, so I might just use those. And then we'll be back. Alright, so I've traced all these, I've cut them out. I left this one to show as an example of cutting out. So this was the back of the head piece, and I thought I wanted it to be flat, but it was a little bit curved, so I did snip it. Where the hell is it? I snipped it right at the where it has a corner and matches up with the other thing, and I just gave it a little slice here with the scissors, and that flattened it right out. Because that's what you do when you get a curved piece and it won't go flat. You just give it a slice and it pops it right out like that. So I did trace these with a seam allowance, but I decided that I wanted to be able to draw these with a marker maybe right onto the fabric. So I did bring out my fabric scissors. You can hear them. A lot sharper. Not the fabric. These are the paper scissors. The fabric scissors are in my sewing box. But I'm sure you'll see those in this video too, because I'm going to be using them when I sew this. I don't know if this is too small to sew all the way on the sewing machine or not. For my Archaeopteryx plushie, of here, the feet parts were so small that I had to do the feet by hand, which is part of why that's so expensive to make. Feet. But anyway, it wouldn't be a huge tragedy if I had to sew these by hand. I could at least do some of it with the machine. There we go, okay. So this is the last piece, and I just cut it out. So I did write on the first piece here to add the 3/8" seam allowance so I don't fucking forget. Now, I didn't make a pattern for the leg yet, so I'm just gonna get it laid out on the paper here. And I could just trace a ruler, to be honest. That might be easier. So it's gonna be about like so when it's done up as a piece. Let's give that a good old trace here. There we go. Leg pattern piece. Let me get that traced on here. This is going to have a little bit of an inner area here. Okay, so here's my leg pattern piece. I'm just cut these scissors. There we go. I'm just going to cut that out, and then I'll have all of my pattern pieces ready. Now this is going to have a seam allowance on it, but when it's done, it should still be able to be folded in half and be about like so, which will look just about like these. Beautiful. Now this is just basic printer paper, but what I could do is I could scan these and print them out on the printer cardstock, which would give it a little more heft. Or I could trace them onto mat board and cut them out the hard way, which is what I did for the pattern for that Archaeopteryx that I had hanging up on the ceiling there. So the next step that I do is, I mean, these don't have to be super stiff, but I might, you know, if they start getting tattered, I'm going to have to make them a little sturdier. So I'm going to save these masking tape pieces until I'm certain that I've got one fully made. I'm just going to cradle them in the shell of the other half for now, just to keep them together. And like I said, this guy is kindling as far as I'm concerned. That's what we do with them. You don't really need to be anywhere. I'm probably going to burn these other legs too, but it was just to get an idea of the whole deal there. It's the beauty of using waste newspaper is that you can get rid of it if you need to. So I'm going to get out the fabric and figure out what I'm tracing these onto it with, because I have a couple of fabric vanishing markers and a couple of pencils that require copious sharpening. Pick up the markers and all the scissors too. Alright, so I've pulled out this fabric from my fabric drawers that I've got. It's this thick, felty, fleecy stuff that's left over from the big pony that I made. I had this tan kind of color and I had a brown color, but because this plushie that I'm doing is so small, I didn't want to overcomplicate it by making it 2 colors, because I've got some yarn that I'm going to use on it as well that'll give it 2 colors. So it's going to be a tan one here, and I should probably make a brown one while I'm doing it. Just, you know, if I'm going to make one, I may as well make 2, but I might do that as like at the end of the video. I feel like this is going to be easier to see because it's lighter. And it's stiffer than the other fabric. So I've pinned one piece on here already. I've used this fabric marker, the split cap, to sort of trace around here. And what I would do is I would try to get in there and mark it here as well. Now I could make these out of like a cotton fabric and they just have like a flat pattern, but if it's a horse, it should be a little bit on the fuzzy side anyway. So I'll just use this same horse material that I have left over from the big one that I made a couple years ago. Almost 3 years ago now. Yeah. So I made it for my cousin's daughter, and then my cousin died the following spring, so that's exciting. Feels. Alright, so I just figured I would lay this out because these are going to be doubled. I don't know if I'm going to have enough material for all the legs, but I might. If not, I'll just make the legs a different color. It's like whatever. Let me lay out these. I have these like lumpy bits of the fabric, and I'm just trying to get rid of them and start out flat again. Let me see if I can put these pieces together over here and get that. Trying to get into the scrap side of it first. So I've got this piece here. I've got these sewing pins. I need to get some more needles. My fucking needles are all busted up. Busted up needles don't fucking help me at all. Alright, now this tends to fade. It like fades with air, so I might have to draw this back on, but it's alright. It's alright. So the reason that I cut off the paper part of the border is so that I can get right in here next to where these lines are supposed to go. Oh, another way to do it is to take a little bit of a contrast thread color. Got some red here. Show me here. And then I get a little needle here. Alright, so if I wanted to mark this spot, I could just go through the thread a few times with it. Man, that's thick. And I'm just going to kind of make a little thread tuft. And I leave some on both sides. And then I just cut it off so that there's no loops and it's kind of short. And of course, I would have to cut it in between the fabric too, without cutting a hole in the fabric. So now when I go to put the pattern pieces together, I'll have this little red tuft as a marker instead of this pen there. It's another way to do it. It just takes a little bit longer. So there's that way. I have to pick those up after. Alright, so here's another piece that I've pinned and got ready. And I'm just going to cut it out of the fabric. If you're doing a real good job, you lay it flat on the table and not hold it up like an asshole like I'm doing. But this is just another brick in the wall over here. Alright, this one I didn't even cut out yet. So I'm just going to follow this method until I get all my pieces. And then I'll be back. Alright, so I've got these last two pieces here. My marker's running out, but I can still faintly see where my line is here. And I just wanted to sort of give an example. So I've got these pinned down, which makes it easy when they're thin paper like that. Although, if I were scared of these being too tattered, I could just photocopy them so that I wouldn't destroy my only copy of the pattern. Scan it. Probably should have copied it beforehand, but that's alright. Not all of my patterns are on like solid stuff. Alright, so there's one. Now this one has a little split in it, so I just clipped the very edge just so I would know where it was. And the same thing over here, because I don't want to clip it all the way down until it's sewn, because sometimes the gap isn't actually going to be that big. And then I've got this here. Now this actually is ending up being a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. I was trying to make a small stuffed animal, but because of the legs, I mean, look at this. This is all the material for the legs. Because of the legs, this is actually going to be a medium-sized stuffed animal. I am going to make a cat with my cat logo on it. I'm not quite sure how I want to do its face yet, but that's going to be a small, like actual, honest-to-God, small stuffed animal and not something in a big, huge fucking leg matrix. This is Sleipnir. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but this is Odin's horse Sleipnir has 8 legs, and I drew it in 2013 as a spider configuration, which is why I'm doing this, because I had the brilliant idea of selling Sleipnir plushies with spider legs to accompany my Sleipnir merch and prints. Although they won't all be sold in the same place, but I can't help that right now. So this is all the material I have left. I might be able to make something out of it, but it really used up some of that excess. I had less of this anyway, I think, because I was only using it for like a little nose stripe and part of the legs of my big horse. So I have a lot more brown material. Let me dig that out while I've got this here. Well, maybe not that much more, but I do have a bunch of this brown here. Could make a fuzzy brown Sleipnir too. It's a little bit thinner, it's a little bit stretchier, it's a little bit fuzzier. But it's also fleece. Macro fleece. It's really soft too, Jesus Christ. I'm gonna make a blanket. Anywho, I'm gonna just put this away for now, but I could, in theory, make these horse plushies. Oh, come on, get in there. Out of other material that I've got, like this cottony stuff here. I could have a friggin' psychedelic horse that's a little bit thinner, but any old thing will do. I had some fuzzy pink stuff. I don't know if I still have it. I might have gotten rid of it last year, as I used to make oh, get the fuck in there. Go. I had some pink fleecy stuff that I had bought when I made this, but I don't think I have it anymore. But I could easily make a pink fuzzy horse if someone wanted something that tacky. If you gave me money for it, I would make it. Alright, so now that I've got these pieces cut out, what I want to do is figure out how I'm going to assemble them. Now I've already figured out that the there's a certain order that the bottom of this has to be sewn up into. And in actual facts, the legs might have to be cut in half. They very well might. Should end up being slightly thinner than I anticipated. That might be a problem. Oh, and I need to make ears too. I need to do the ears. Where's my scraps? Use a scrap of the fabric and just make a couple of ears. Yeah. Just kind of winging it. There. Roughly horse ears. So the way that I have this set up, I might have to cut these leg strips in half and eventually cut them wider. But I'm not going to waste this fabric. This might end up being a little more difficult. But the way that I have this, they need to be sewn in here with a gap in them. Because I'm going to be putting plastic trussing through here. But this whole top part can be sewn together. And I'll get the yarn out for the tail and get the head put together. So I'm just, like, I don't think I'm gonna sew anything tonight unless it looks small enough to hand sew. But the idea is that I'm going to kind of build each half of this from the top down. And I'll get back in here after I get some of that. I guess. We got 13 minutes left on this segment. I feel like this video is going to be excessively long. I'm going to put these ears somewhere where I'm not going to forget where the hell they are. Okay. 6, 3, this is the neck. 1, 3. See, with my cheat sheet here, I know how these pieces are supposed to be set up. And I've got the top of the head. And the ears are just going to go right in there. Boom. That's it. And the back of the head. Look at the neck. What the hell is this? Oh, this is the face. I was like, what the fuck? What am I even holding on to? Alright, so here's the face. And here's the main part of the body. So I've got this all set up here. And I do have to mind the opposite pieces too. So I'm going to have to, usually a lot of the time what I have to do is I have to trace the lines onto the back side of the template so that when I lay it down on the opposite one, I'll be able to put the lines back in, but I can kind of see them on here, so it shouldn't be a problem. Now, when I made my Archaeopteryx plush, it was so complex that I had to make instructions, and when I made the template for, let me just show. Oh, Jesus Christ! When I made the template for this, I didn't make instructions, I just kind of figured it out as I went along. So that is all canvas that I sewed together. I did it exactly the same way as I'm doing this plushie, except it was flat on one side, which was a whole other ball of problems, but we're not worrying about that right now. We're worrying about putting these pattern pieces together without an instruction sheet. But this is kind of my instruction sheet because I can see how this has to be put together. So I've got piece number 7, that's this guy right here. And I want to put the opposite side together first because I feel like that's going to be the hardest part. Sorry seems to be the hardest word. I need a better... I wonder if this pencil is going to work. Not really. I have some actual washable markers that might help better. This material is so thick that it might not show through, but I mean, if you put it through the wash, it would probably be fine. So I'll use the tan one. Oh, yes. It's going to make things a lot easier. So it's like a little bit smaller than I need it to be. Okay. Alright, so this goes this way. I'm just going to put this over here. Pin that back onto that so I have kind of a guide for what I'm looking at for my numbers and letters and things. Okay. So it's my mirror image. Because this is this is going to be the outside of it anyway. So I'm just going to do the same thing with this other one. Now this one has a little crack in it, so I'm going to have to sew that one up first. But I'll do that in a minute. I'm just going to pin this backwards to here for a second so you can see what I'm doing. I'm sure there's other people that can sew like 800 times better than me, but considering that I had to kind of teach myself how to do this the wrong way for like 1.5 years straight on the most difficult project you could possibly imagine, I think I'm doing alright. Sort of... sewing extravaganza for the neuroatypical. There we go. Okay. So this is number 6, and this is number 7. And these pieces are going to be going together, each with an ear stuffed in the middle. I'm not quite sure. I should have made this longer. Like a longer thing. Where the fuck did I put the trash? Make these a little bit longer. So I have like a something to grip onto when I sew it together. Okay. So it might be too wide, but they're longer, which will give me something to sew onto. Fix that. It's too big. My sombrero is too big. Okay, so that's probably good enough. Doesn't have to be the most pristine horse ears in the history of existence, as long as they get in there. Like all the tools that I've got here, it's just ridiculous. Okay, so I have where these meet is right here like this, with the ear in the middle. So I have AN and AP, and I'm going to mirror this, so I want this to be like this. But notice again, I have this gap here in the middle, which I want to sew up. I'm going to have a thread that matches this. I don't freaking know. It's kind of dark. There we go, that's the one. And I've still got some on the spool over here. I use that out first. So before I attach anything to itself, what I should do is go through and sew up all of these little gaps. But I could do it for each individual thing as I go through. Yummy, delicious, sticky spit and dirty fingers. Okay. So this isn't cut all the way through, but I'm going to pinch it where this line is. And I'm just going to get it. Man, this stuff is thick. And I'm also, in case that tries to pull through, I'm going to loop my needle through there, through that little knot. There. So I could just do like loop the thread, but sometimes I'll go and do like little bitty straight stitch, like mimic the sewing machine and do like in and then back and then in and then back, but I get kind of lazy and I'm just gonna do it like tight little loops, because it's not going to be that big of a gap anyway, but it's just enough to give it an extra sense of three-dimensionality. I'm going to tie that knot right on the seam line there. Ball sack. Yeah, it tightened before I wanted it to. Piece of crap. Well, that did not come out great. Whatever, I'm just going to cut the whole thing. Okay. So now I have a slightly more three-dimensional piece. There's just a little bit of bend in it. I guess you could see that. And again, this fabric is really thick, so it's hard to see. Alright, where am I at with this? Oh yeah, I need to put the ear in the middle. So I have A and... Okay, so this point that I just tied off on where I made a corner is right where I want to attach it to this. Alright, and I did that on purpose because it's a little bit easier to see it. So I've got it pinned on there. Now ideally I would get that with the sewing machine. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. So I'm going to put this ear in here. I feel like it should be shaped a little better. Okay. And I'm going to... Now this is going to be the outside, so I want to have it sort of upside down in here. Which one's the front? This is the front. Okay, so I want the fuzzier side of the ear toward the front. Just to pretend like it's going to be more realistic. And I get my seam line here. Alright, so if I pop this back out the right way, that looks like probably about the right amount of ear sticking up. So I'm going to leave it like that. I got a minute left. Okay. So even though I have a small little section to sew here, I'm going to stick a pin through where that ear is. And ideally I'd be able to sew this on a sewing machine and not have it break on me. And then I'm going to just put a pin through where the other corner is that I've got marked. And that is going to be half of the top of the head. And when I pop it in, this is going to be, you can already see this is the back of the head, and this is the front of the head with an ear sticking out. Alright. So again, I'm going to just try to sew that on the sewing machine, but I'm going to put this other half together first, so I'll have mirrored sections ready to go. Alright, so I'm combining these pieces 3 and 2 together because of the way this has to go together, right? I have 6 and 7, and then I have to join them to 5, and then I have to join that to 4, and then 2 and 3 get joined to 4 once they're together. So I'm doing these first, and then I'll be able to combine the other ones after. But I wanted to point this out, is that this one has a fold in it as well, right? I've got sewn it together already. There's going to be a seam there where the hip is. And there's a curve here. So what I'm doing is I'm pinning it on the inside, because this outer part that's a little bigger where the seam is going to be larger. So when I sew it, I want to sew it from the inside, because the stitches will be a little tighter. Hopefully I'll be able to do that on the machine, because that would make my life a little bit easier. I'm just going to pin it there. Booyah. And then I'll just get the rest of this pinned up, and then I'll get the other side done too. And then that's the first part that I know that I'll be able to sew, and I might take a look and see how I can do these legs, or I might start building the trusses for them in the interim. So we'll get that. Well, it would appear that I am fully out of the material that I use for plastic trussing in my stuffed animals. So I might have to go to the hardware store and buy some kind of wire for this. Because I don't know if I want to go into Walmart still during pandemic time to get some more plastic canvas. And because these are kind of skinny, the wire might work better. So I'm not going to be able to do that part of this yet. But in the meantime, I've got this part ready to go. You can see it's going to be part of the hip here. It's got a three-dimensional thing going on. And I got the other one too. So we got mirror image things here, and hopefully it won't be too long till I have something for the leg trusses. Maybe I will go to Walmart, maybe I won't. I need a couple other things too, but we'll see. I might need more hot glue too. But we'll get there. This is all part of the process here. Alright, so I'm in here with the sewing machine. I've got this beige thread through the machine here. And I just test sewed these two pieces off camera. Now, I've still got these threads on here. I had to do this one twice because the thing shifted and the ear was all fucked up, and now it's a little bit off still, but it's better than it was. And this one came out alright, so that worked. Except the thread got weird, and now it's got like a little loop here. But when I sew things, I like my seams to be really rock solid. Now these came out on the same side, but I'm just going to tie them off before I cut them. I'm going to tie off my threads. Just because I like it to be really in there. So this one's on the other side. So I'm just going to run it through with the needle. It's such a headache. I have like a hangover from not getting to sleep until 6 o'clock in the morning 2 days in a row. And then I'm like, I don't know if I'm ill or what. But I'm just going to tie that through that loop that's there. I've got like a migraine, which is unusual for me, and I don't know if it's because I'm having a hard time drinking water for some reason, or if I have like some weird third eye upgrade going. I don't usually get a migraine. Alright, so I have my seam here. And I'm going to tie this one off too, if I can get my needle. So the whole point of this is that, you know, it takes, you think, oh, okay, I'm just going to sew it up real quick, but it's only like 2 seconds of sewing per hour of cutting and folding and pinning and whatever. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna sew, it'll be alright, but running the machine is literally like maybe 10% of the whole deal, if that. I have a double thread here, so I'm just going to tie it off on the same side because I had to go over it twice. It'll be fine. I'm just doing like, I don't know why, but I actually know that it's called a square knot, and then I just trim it off. Some people just, you know, cut it and let it hang, but, you know, when you buy clothes in the store, the seams sometimes come undone because the ends aren't tied together, but I like it to be really in there. Now, I am gonna sew another piece before I pin stuff back, but let me shut this off for a second. I have to... One of the more important things to do, even in the tiny pieces like this when doing stuffed animals. Now, if this was a curve, I'd have to clip it. I could clip it right. Get right, clip in the middle. It's not really curved, but I'm just going to give it a little snip anyway, just for an example. I got my ironing board here. Ironing board cam here. Just a towel, just an old towel that I weigh down with the edge of the sewing machine. I got my iron here. Oh man, that smells, it's like dusty. So let me drop that down a little bit and make sure I'm in focus. Yeah. So I've got the seam sewn, I've got the edges tied off, and I'm just gonna just iron it flat there. Now it might not stay because this is the front of the, okay, so I want it that way. It might not stay because it's so puffy, but it gives it a little bit of crispness. If it was like a cotton material, you'd really be able to see that fold. But it just kind of, so I'm gonna press the ear towards the front so it doesn't get screwed up. But it just gives it a little bit of directionality of where the seam's gonna go. And then I'm just gonna turn I'm gonna turn my oven, turn my iron down, so you can see this is where the head is gonna be, and the other half of the head. Oh man, that smells burnt with some fucking dust burning off of there. So I'm gonna just quickly leave the camera on while I sew the next piece that I have together. Turn this bad boy back on. Yeah, alright. So I've got this piece pinned here, and I have this part on the outside, and I'm going to try to keep it real tight there on that seam. And once I get this, and when I started, I actually forgot to put the foot down on the machine. So I've got that, I'm going to get my pin out of the way. So start it off by hand for a second. Okay. I'm trying to go kind of slow because it's not that big a seam. And I'm gonna reinforce that corner and put that down and adjust my fabric here. Beautiful. I've had occasion where the needle will try to eat a pin, but it's usually not too bad. So that seems like it came out alright. It's a little bit up there, but it doesn't have to be critically perfect. Now this one's going to be hard because I kind of have to start on the curve. How many of them? Shift my fabric here. It's
so thick and plush and soft. Oh.
Just gonna reinforce that corner again, kind of. Make sure this is fucking flat. Beautiful. Okay. So now that I've got this part done, I'm going to just take the pins out. I'm just going to do the same thing that I did and pull the thread through the other side and tie it off. So on here where I've got this definite corner, I use these because the tips are sharper, I'm going to actually clip that out. And I don't want to go all the way down to the line, obviously, because it's going to screw up my seam that's caught to some other thread. But I just want to have a little bit of allowance, because when I turn that inside out, it's going to have a little bit of a spread. Yeah. If it was an inside corner, I wouldn't cut little darts in it. I would just cut it flat like this. If it was a, well, actually I might take some material out, but on like inner corners you don't necessarily have to cut the little dart out unless it's too bulky, but you could just give it a flat snip like that. This is still on a curve, so I'm going to snip this over here. There. Alright, so I'm going to I mean, now that these are prepared, I can pin this to the next piece that I need to pin it to. Right, I can come over here and pin it to the face piece. And then once that's sewn, I can pin it to the fore. But now that these two pieces are together, I can actually take these and do them to the fore right now. So I'm going to pin these to the fore, I'm going to pin these to the 5, and then once those pieces are all ready, then I can attach those together at that point. And I still have to figure out what I'm doing down here because my plastic canvas trusses have not been shipped yet because I had to order some. So I'll come back in a minute, and I mean, it's just basically pinning them together and so on, but I'll be right back. I'm going to point out on these that I have this neck part here, and it's going to kind of change direction. So I did clip this fairly close to where that change in direction is, so that when it sews onto the other piece, it's not going to be like tight and crunching and pulling, just to give it some more leeway to move around. Now, I have planned to give this horse thing like shaggy for like bottom legs. So what I wanted to do is, I've got this yarn here that I used for horsehair for the big horse, and man, there's a shit ton of this. Look how big this is. I should use the brown thread to sew this on, but I'm just going to be lazy and use what I've got. I could always do like flip it over too. But I've got this kind of idea here. Let's see how it works. I'm just kind of, ooh, you know what? You know what I could do? Is I could get it like right in the middle and sew it and then have it flop over. So what I'm going to do is I can take a line of this and sew it down, and then I'll flop that over, and I'll do like 3 tiers of it, and it'll give me shaggy legs. And I'm going to do that now before I sew them up, because once the seams are, you know, accounted for, I'm not going to be able to get in there and do that. So I'm going to do that. on the legs as in part of this interim step of sewing. So I've got these, and I'm going to pin them to this part, and I've got these, and I'm going to pin them to this part and then sew that up. But I'm also going to go in here with the needle and thread and sew up this seam here that I made, and this one here as well. Alright. Was I even holding that up? I might not have been holding that up to the camera. So I'm going to have this like shaggy leg situation here and just kind of sew these on here on a line and then flip it over. So you'll see in a minute. I've encountered a potential design flaw here because I have this sort of like stuffed taquito kind of situation going on here with the way the leg seam is going to work. I don't know if I want to iron this or not, but I was barely able to get it stitched over that, and I only did it halfway because I want to be able to turn this right side up. So I'm going to try to get it now. A paintbrush or something. No plastic one in here anymore. Let's see what I've got. This one's pretty stiff. Let me try this one. Because I want to be able to get this to be right side out at some point ever, and it's just really tight in here with all this leg hair that I put on it. So I'm not even sure if this is going to work. I might have to rethink the whole making the legs fuzzy thing and just sew it through afterwards. And it kind of looks like pubes right now, which I'm not really fully into, and I don't know if it's going to look weird. When this is done. So far, not looking super great. And it's really, really tight. Try the larger paintbrush. I did like a... I mean, it's kind of working here, but it doesn't look great. I just need to get like enough of it right side out to kind of get it. But, oh, there, I'm getting some of it. There we go. Hopefully without tearing the fabric of the thing here. There we go. It's working now. God, that looks bad. I don't know if I really want to do this 8 times. It seemed like it was going to be simple. Probably not a great idea. This is the thing, is developing a stuffed animal from scratch, is that you sometimes have to experiment a little bit. Now, I have 8 legs, and I have enough material to recut this leg if I need to. I'm just trying to see if it's going to work. Although I'm not sure if what I'm doing is really worth all this effort that I'm putting into it. Ow, hit my fingernail. If this was a thinner fabric, this would definitely get screwed up. Oh, almost there. Okay. So let me just try to pull these threads out of the little seams. I was going, oh, I know why it looks weird too, is because I was going to try to brush out this yarn. I had this great idea. It's kind of stuck in there too. I might have to cut that. Let's just see. It's going to be a hot mess. Okay. All stuck all up in that seam as well, so that's not great. sort of like a happy trail down the back of the leg. Alright, so let me put this in here because this is gonna have, it's intended to have like a trussing on it, and this experiment is not really working that great. So I might have to abandon the fuzzy legs thing because it looks a little effed up, and it doesn't look like it's going to be the right color either. It also looks like it should go further up the leg. So I might end up rooting some doll hair on these instead. I've got some platinum white doll hair that would probably look better than this, but I'll probably still use this for the mane and the tail. So I'm gonna brush out. I don't have a brush over here with me. Oh wait, I've got my carpet comb. Let's see what happens if I brush this out a little bit. If it gives me any kind of remotely the look that I want. So on account of this coming out when I brush it and it looking not that great, slightly better but more like a witch's paintbrush, I'm going to abandon this and just consider that since this is a smaller thing with little spidery legs, that I'm just going to leave it like that. Now, spiders do have little paws, so maybe if I just put some little tufty loops right on the tip and give it that little, like, fuzzy foot action here, that might work. But we'll see. Alright, so I've got these legs all sewn up. So I just took the fabric and folded it in half and sewed it up to a little bit of a gap here where it's going to join. And I did clip the corners. I clipped this corner here and this corner here. This is all flat, so I left it flat, but I did clip it right here, right where the seam's going to be, because it might spread out a little bit. I might bend it, so I just got a little more room there. I did iron this. You can see a little bit where it's pulled back. And I've turned all these other ones right side out already, and I did kind of use I took the needle, just try to get some of the fur out of the seam, just so it's not quite so flat. So I've done all the other ones already, but I just wanted to get a little view of how I did that. So I got this last leg turned right side out, and I ripped the seam because I don't know why I had so much trouble getting it, but it got really caught in there and wouldn't come out, so I did pull on the end with the pliers, and I just ripped this section here. So I just I had it on the paintbrush, and I just stitched up this inch-long section with the needle and thread, and it should be alright. Also stabbed myself with the needle, so I got a little blood in there, but I think I got most of it off. So it's pretty much any sewing project. It's like anytime I work with hot glue, I know I'm going to burn myself. Anytime I work with a big sewing project, I know I'm going to bleed on it at some point. So I did think about how I'm going to attach these to the two sections, and what I'm going to treat them like little sleeves. I haven't pinned the other pieces to the neck yet, but this is going to be the belly, and the legs are going to come in here. So I'm just going to sew these along the little joints in between, and then once I have a loop here, I'm going to sew this into the loop like it was a sleeve. And I'm going to do that for all 8 of them, and it's going to be kind of a pain in the ass, but that's how it's going to work. And it should work okay, but it's just going to be some hand sewing. So I'm going to get the neck and stuff attached, and then these are going to be probably the last part of each half, just because it's going to take longer. But that's, I mean, this is what makes this thing a medium-sized plush instead of a little one, just because there's so much stuff here. Looks like I'm strangling a Fraggle. Alright, so I have these pieces pinned together here, and that should be alright on the sewing machine. I don't know if I feel like I should sew it on the side where the pins are not on, but I might swallow one of them. I'm just going to carefully get that through there somehow. And these are extremely complex in the way that they're shaped. So for the corner here and where the tip of the snout is, especially, I might have to go in and hand sew that, and then I'll just do the straights with the machine just to make them, you know, as sturdy as they can be. That's where it is right now. I might not, well, I mean, it's not going to matter when this video is done, but I mean, I burnt myself out today. I took a Dramamine because I was nauseous so I could keep working. So I've sewn these pieces together, and I've ironed them, and keep some of that out of there. It's a little bit too much. Iron them, and I've turned them back around this other chunk here. There. Got them right side out. Now I am going to have to put an eye here somewhere, and when I get this sewed together more, before I stuff it, I'll be able to figure out better where to place it, and then I'll mark it on the template for the next time I make one of these. I just want to make sure it looks right, and I have the eye where it really needs to be before I go try to put something in there. I kind of need to figure out what I'm going to put there anyway. But now I've got this, the top of the body together with the neck, and I've got this bottom of the body, and the legs are going to get stuffed in here. So what I've done is I'm going to sew the front and then this tiny section in between where the legs go. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4 legs, and then this corner here for the bottom of the butt. And it's just going to take a minute to get that sewn on, and then I'll do that. And once that's done, then I'm going to pin the head to the neck here, and then it'll be able to be together. So I've got this piece sewed on here. I did trim, and I clipped and ironed the seams. So everywhere where I've got one of these little holes to put the legs in, I've gone and just clipped the seam right next to it, so that I have a little more give in the fabric. Now these look a little tighter than I want them to be, but hopefully it'll be alright. And I was debating whether I wanted to sew the legs on before sewing the two halves together, but I think I'm going to have to. It should fit in there alright. So I've got the head and neck sewn on, and I clip the seams and iron that, and have it all together. So this is the entire half of the body, and I'll get it, the legs in there, and then I'll sew the two halves together, and then I'll figure out that eye placement for sure. Should be right around here somewhere. Alright. And again, the way that I'm planning on getting these legs in here, right, they're already right side out, so I'm going to pop them through here, and they're going to be like little sleeves. Now, the way that these are, I want the seam on the leg to be pointed downwards, so it sort of dictates the way that these are coming in here, like this. And then I've got to hand sew these in here, which is going to be somewhat painstaking, but I'm going to get them in there. That's now I think I was going to say, I think one of these legs is bigger than the other, so I probably should plan that out first too. Figure out, because I have one leg that's a little fatter than the other ones. Make sure I don't have a skimpy leg like right in the middle. Oh, look. Okay, yeah, that one can go in the back. Oh, it's kind of long though. Maybe that should go in the front. That's the one that I almost destroyed trying to get apart. Trying to turn inside out. Fat one in the middle. bigger one. So I don't want the body to be like disproportionate. I think these look pretty good. So I'll do a thinner one in the front, and then the other ones will go on the side. So I'm going to pull these all through here, just to get an idea of what the next step is, because I'm not going to do it all the way on camera, because it's going to make this video really long when I finally get all these pieces of it put together. I feel like these should be bigger, but we'll see. Okay, so this is how these are going to go into here, and I'm going to sew them in there by hand with the little tiny needle that I've got right now. I've got some more needles on the way, but I could also get in there with the upholstery needle. That might make it a little easier. Really, oh, Jesus Christ, where did it even go? I think I dropped it on the floor. Yes, I did. Or the slightly larger upholstery needle. So those are gonna get in there, and then I'll stick the other ones in the other one, and I'm gonna hand sew those on, and then I'll be able to sort of fold them up inside and sew the two halves together, because I want to have a little bit of give and not be fighting with the other half of the horse to get these tied on, and I think there should be just enough space to get these together, and that I'm going to leave this gap in the bottom here to stuff it with. I might have to make the gap a little bit wider though. I may make it over here, but we'll see. I'll get that done and come back. Alright, so I've gotten these 4 legs sewn together, and I figured out that the best method was not the upholstery needles, but the straight needle. And this is the only one that I've got right now. I keep misplacing them. So this is what I've got until more of them come in. The other ones are fucking huge, so that's not going to help me right now. I did find out that when I'm putting these in, that I'm using this paintbrush as a holder here, and I've got my seam right up to the other one here, and it was easier to get in here if I just clip the other side. Easy peasy. Could spread it down a little bit, it's easier to get in there. So I'm going to pretend that I've gotten into a rhythm with these, and I'm going to do this one on camera just to give a little idea of what I've got going on here. Oh, come on, you piece of crap. Watch me not be able to start it. There we go. Stuck myself in the other finger. That felt great. I was doing good till I had to try to do this on camera. This is what happens when you try to maneuver physical objects while being ill. I had to do an errand today as the least dysfunctional person in the house, and at least as of today, and I came back and I was coated in sick sweat. But I did my card of the day, and I really want to get these legs done. So I want to sew the halves together, and that way I'll only have the eyeball and the truss. I still don't know what I'm going to do for the eyeballs for this. I was thinking of these star buttons that I've got, or maybe some beads of some sort. I could... And then I thought maybe I could give Sleipnir closed eyes. I just like sew in some eyelashes. But I don't know. It really hurts where I just stabbed my finger. Now, partly I'm using the pliers because I can't really get my hand in there very well. Partly because I have some repeat motion damage from slicing meat at a deli for 4 years, and partly because this is really thick, and this is how I get the needle through when I'm doing doll reroute, and it works just as well. And this makes it a lot faster for me. So, is this even on the camera? I'm just essentially sewing this in here as one would have to sew a sleeve onto something larger. Now, for like a human-sized sleeve, you can actually use the sewing machine, and you'd get in there and baste it and then smooth it out as to where the curve would be. But on here, there isn't really room for that. I've only done human sleeves like once or twice. These doll sleeves tend to have to be done by hand too because they're so small. Not sure how intriguing this is, but it goes a lot faster with this straight needle. I was really struggling with the curved ones. It's not as pliable as the canvas, because I had to sew the canvas mostly with this guy, and it's hard to push it through a lot of fabric when it's turning because it's curved, but that was the only way to do it, which is partly why it took me 3 months to hand sew that together. So if you ever have to sew a structure onto a stretched canvas, it fucking sucks. Hopefully I'll have the market cornered on that type of art because nobody else will want to do it because it's a pain in the ass. I feel like over time the stuffed animals I'm making are gradually going to become easier. This one, because of the legs, is turning out to be a medium size and will be priced accordingly. Actually, medium-sized stuffed animals are already listed in my catalog prior to this. I just didn't have an example yet, but now I will. Or, the sample that I had is like 23 years old, and it was destroyed a long time ago. But I had to have something in there in that slot. So I put Bob in there. Made him in my grandma's house when I stayed there for a week when I was in high school. But I do have a plan for a small stuffed animal. It's going to be a cat, and it's supposed to be somehow going to be my logo, but I think I need to get some printable fabric so I can make the face, because the face is supposed to look like that, and I don't have any way of doing that unless I bought some fabric paint and like freestyled it, which would be a pain in the ass and take way too long. If I could just print it on some fabric, it would make it feasible to do. See, I got these bent here because I cut it in half and it made it a lot easier. Okay. These are just pliers for one of those like small tool kits that you got at like Walmart or something. Super handy and not very expensive. So this part gets harder around here because I have this other seam here before I get back around to the front. But it doesn't really take that long. And I'll be done in just a minute, which is great. Because I've got 3 more legs to do, and it's going quite swimmingly, I think. I was like worried about getting hand sweat on here, but I mean these are pretty thick. And this is going on the inside. The weather here has been super crazy. It was cold for a couple of days, or cooler. you know, brisk enough to not have to run a fan at night if you leave the windows open. Then it got humid, and then it got up to 75, and then it was like freezing rain last night, and today cooler, except that when I was coming back from running critical errand, I was like, I spiked a fever and got into that like sick sweat thing, which hopefully means that I'm about to kick this intestinal flu or whatever the fuck it is that I've got. There we go. And I'm pushing that through there with my thumbnail, which is not very much right now. I'm probably going to shred it. I keep breaking my thumbnails. And again, I mean, it might seem painstaking to have to keep picking up these pliers and putting them down, but it makes it so much easier. Save those finger... save the finger ligaments for as long as possible. If you're doing the arts and crafts thing, you're probably in for early onset arthritis as it is, unless you're hitting that CBD, which I need to get more of. My hands haven't been too bad, but I've been playing a lot of the Binding of Isaac lately, so that's also not great for my hands because I'm just like constantly slamming on the keyboard. This is almost done. I wanted to get like a full one of these on camera just to show how I'm actually doing this in case somebody wants to try to replicate this. I could sell the pattern, but I don't know why I should sell the pattern to people when they can just pay me money to make one. And it's one of those, like, I feel like it's kind of like with a recipe. It's like, I'm not going to tell you how to make it. I'm just going to show you what I put into it. It's like, yeah, just put like a fucking handful of shit in there until it smells right. I don't use any defined measurements here, as you know, and some of it is, you know, I'm actually making this up as I go along, like every step of the way. You know, like I had a couple hours where I couldn't sleep the other night because this video is taking several days to actually do, and I had to really think about how I was going to attach the legs and the belly portion. What is my computer doing? I paused my music so that I wouldn't get copyright infringed, and now it's doing an update or some bullshit. You can hear the CPU chunking. It's upsetting me. It's disturbing my wah. I learned that phrase from reading Shogun. Where the fuck? I've got like 5 stitches left to do on this. It's gonna be done in a second. Almost there. Thank God for pliers. Jesus Christ. It's caught on stuff. Probably can't really see what I'm doing with my hands, but that's alright. I'm sort of keeping a close eye on where my stitches are. I'm trying to do them only like a couple millimeters apart so that it's fairly tight in there, as how it would be if it were, if it were actually sewn on the machine. And I was thinking about a label for this. I was thinking of putting it on the feet instead of the butt, because it looks kind of like a turd with the label coming out of the butt over here. I'm not sure if I like that situation, so I was thinking of putting a label on one of the back legs, but I just realized that I've already sewn them up, so this first one, it might have a butt label. It just might. Because I wasn't paying attention when I sewed up the legs. That's alright though. You know, and then the eyeballs might be different. I was gonna buy some eyeballs, but I forgot because I was so upset about trying to find stuff online when I would much rather go in the store, but also I don't want to get the plague, and it's not really worth it. Plus, I didn't have the energy to drive anywhere, and I really wanted stuff like right away, so I just went and friggin' ordered it. Alright. So I'm just going to tie this off because I have gone all the way back around now. There we go. Alright, so that is 5 legs down and 3 to go, and I think what I'm going to do also is, once I get them all done, I'm just going to go ahead and iron this a little bit flatter, just for funsies, and then I'll be pinning the whole thing together, at least to, you know, with the guts open. And I'm going to, well, I'm going to come back before I do that, because I got to sew on part of the tail over here, and sew another half of tail over here, and get a little bit of a mane going here. Oops, a little bit of a mane going in the center as well, so I've got to remember to do that. But I'm going to get these other 3 legs on, and then we'll be back. Alright, so I've got the legs all sewed on, and I did some other prep also. So I've taken some loops of this yarn that I had the other day, or earlier in this video anyway, and I just wrapped it around my arm and trimmed it. So I've got some basted to the seam on this half, and then on this side I've got it basted to the top half of the head, so that when it gets sewn together there'll be a continuous line. And I put some like that for the tail on both sides. Just looped some and basted it on there. And here's some on this side. Now I also took some of this ribbon that I've got, and I made this is just regular gold thread that I had. I don't have any embroidery floss right now. Then I just looped a bunch of that together with the fat needle, and then I went back with the little needle and a single gold thread, just to tack it down better. So I have SLP 001, so that's Sleipnir number 1, and then I just put my initials instead of trying to sign my whole name and then the year 2020. I don't know if they're all going to be gold thread, but this one is, just because this is what I felt like using. So I did iron this a couple times, and then I've just got it tacked to the seam area. So when they get the full seam in, it'll get right in there. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to trim the tail until I've got this fully together, but I'm going to trim just going to trim it to the seam so that it's even. I'm not going to trim this because I've got the thread tacked to it. And then I'm going to do that up here, where I've got this horse pubes anyway. So I'm just trying to get it even with the seam so I can figure out where I'm going with it. That looks pretty good. Just throw that in the tersh. This is kind of long and in the way, so I'm just going to snip it. And I'll trim it back up later when I figure out how long it's actually going to be. So this one I've only got the tail. If you can hear that howling in the background, that's just our old cat. She's 19 and a half, and she gets confused easily these days. Alright. So, yes, okay. So now what I'm gonna do is that I've ironed these, even though you can't really tell, and I've got the tail, trim this too, boom, and this shaggy situation over here, I'm gonna trim that too, just to make it a little bit more manageable. And I'll do a final trim after, just to keep it from getting too much in my way. So I'm going to pin this whole thing together, and then sew it, and then I'm going to pop it right side out and then figure out the eye placement. And we should be good to go. Alright, so I have this all pinned up, and I realized once I had the opening that I could stick the legs through it. So this is looking like a pretty unsavory Uncrustable at this point. And I'm going to have to sew it carefully because... Let me get a focus back there where it's at. I'm going to have to sew it carefully because it's really thick in some places, and the needle, the pins are probably going to get bent and I might break a needle, but I'm going to try and do it carefully and slowly, and then once it's all sewn up I should be able to pop it right side out and get those eyes placed in there, and then once I get the trusses it'll be ready to go. So we're almost there. Alright, so I managed to sew this without breaking the needle. I figured out I could get it flatter and work better if I pulled out the pins right before they got there. It was a slow process, but it's not that big, so it worked. So I clipped the seams and I ironed them down a little bit. And I'm just gonna pop it right side out now. Boom, boom, satisfying. Come on, buddy, get your face out of there. Alright. Oh, that's delightful. I think the ears are too small. To make the ears bigger next time. Ears need to be bigger. Let's see how big these ears are. Alright, that's a note for myself to make the ears bigger. Because I could trim them down after. These are a little small, but whatever. The mane looks alright. I'm going to trim it a little so it's not quite so enormous. But I'm going to go and iron that seam down from the outside, and I'm going to probably put the eye right about here. So there's my face piece. Where did it go? Oh, it's underneath. Alright, so here on my face piece, which I now can't really tell where it's at. Where is... I can't even see the seam. Interesting. Here on the face piece, though, I can see that I want the eye to be kind of right about where that E is in the name. So I'm just going to put a dot here, and that way I know where I want my eye placement. So I'm still not sure what I want to put there, but I'll figure it out, and in the meantime, I know that I'm going to get that eyeball right about here. And then from the other side, hopefully in a similar place, right about here. Look right. Put it in the same spot there so it's even. It's a washable marker, so I'm just kind of getting it off there. Alright, so it's coming together. And I just got to, I'm going to get some kind of eyeball on there. I'm going to iron these seams. This butthole's kind of jammed up there, but there. Kind of ran over the seam with the label there a little bit, but it's almost all there. You can see that it's he's trying to poop out the, oh, that's terrible. Okay, so anyway, the tail Could be a little bit smaller, but that's alright. We're just kind of figuring it out here. So somebody's going to want it even though it's a little bit special. So I did pretty good on the mane here. There's a couple of small gaps, but oh well. Can't have perfection when we don't know what we're doing. So anyway, so when I get the trusses, I'm going to pull them in here. They're going to be sort of hopefully hot glued in the middle. I'm going to get the stuffing up in there and get it. So, spider horse. So I was digging around for what I had to use for the eyes. I got rid of like a third of everything I owned last summer, including a lot of crafty supplies. So I found these little tiny puff balls, little miniature pom-poms. They're black. I've got a couple other colors. And then I've got these green sequins. So I'm going to use this. I don't even have any beads right now. Jesus Christ. Except for the skull beads, and those are too big. So I'm going to do this kind of like little nestled sequin thing here. With the pom-pom inside there, and that's going to be my eyeballs. Now, if I had a googly eye, but it was too big, and I couldn't sew it on. So, I don't know if I'm going to, for like every single time I make these, if I'm going to use this same kind of situation here for the eyeballs. I mean, horse eyes, they're actually, like the iris part is actually rectangular, but I don't think it matters on something this size. But just wanted a little bit of shine there, so I'm going to try to sew that on both sides and see how far I get. I don't know how the thread's gonna go through this pom-pom, but I'm gonna try. Okay, so I sewed these on. It wasn't too bad to get up in there. It would have been easier if I had sewed the eyes on before attaching the halves together. But now that I know where they're supposed to be, it's not gonna be too bad. So they're kind of picking up lint from the lighter fabric, but there's just a little glint of the green in there, which is good enough. I actually kind of like that. I might do that, sequins and mini pom-poms. Those work great for eyeballs, and they're soft and they're sewn right in there. So that worked out quite well. I tried to trim this hair into some bangs, and I think I cut them too short. But it's alright. It sticks to the fuzziness, so it's alright. But I trimmed this a little bit so it wasn't hanging down too far. And I trimmed the tail so it's not quite as long. It should be alright now. It shouldn't be. It might drag on the floor a little bit. So I might trim it a little bit more once the legs are trussed. But now that I've got this, I can put some stuffing in here in the main body until I get the trusses, which I'll be able to finish it. But I got this big honkin' fucking massive box of stuffing, and I just put new duct tape on it to hold it closed. How big is this? 10 pounds? The hell did I stuff this with? I must have made something. Oh, I know, I got it for the fucking painting. Jesus Christ. Alright. So, let's take a chunk and pop it through the hole and really pack it in there with whatever you can get in there. Pencils, fingers, any old thing. Just like really cram it in there till it's filled tight. So he's got a kind of a fat head, which is fine. It's supposed to be sort of a cutesy thing. Just like another clump. Now this isn't going to take hardly as much stuffing as this asshole up here. That guy takes like a whole pound of stuffing at least. Am I still in focus? Kind of. So I want to get the neck proper here too, so that it's well stuffed. I mean, it's really loose coming out of the bag, but can get a lot of it down in there. That looks pretty good. Pretty squishy. So I'm trying to get it stuffed to about where these flaps from the legs go. And it's gonna be a little bit loose until I get the trusses in there. I can really pack around them. But this will get the basic part of the body full. Get the butt full. A giant buttload of stuffing. That looks pretty good right there. So we have a kind of a puffy and bulbous horse shape, and that's how we're going to do. So to get the trusses in there, and then put a little bit more padding, and then I'm going to kind of pinch it and then sew it up by hand, and it won't take that long. So the trusses are going to make the legs able to strike a pose. So this whole part here is done and dusted, and we're going to make a brown one out of that brown fabric, and then there'll be two of them, and it'll match the yarn a little bit better, and hopefully the bangs won't be quite as severe on the second Sleipnir, and I'll get the ears a little bigger. Those look a little bit fucked up. I should sew a little piece on there to make them taller, but I don't know if I want to do that. I guess they're alright. They're tolerable. So whoever buys the first one, they'll have the condition of it being the very first one, but also be slightly off from the other ones, what with being the crash test dummy. We'll have the coveted Sleipnir #1 tag on its butthole. And like I said, on future ones, I don't know if I want to have that tag coming right out of its butt. I might sew it onto the back leg and have the tag coming out of the leg instead. I think that would be better. I just didn't think to do that. So there we have it. And we'll be back when the plastic comes so I can get those legs going. It'll be awesome. Alright, so I've got the legs pretty well set into an order of how I'm doing them. So I'm going to go ahead and... Is this even... Yeah, I'm going to plug in my thing over here. It's still pretty hot. Not really. It cools off pretty quickly. What the hell? Okay. I got tape. Masking tape. See why I have this in a minute. Already burnt my fingers a few times. Not as bad as usual, thankfully, because of the masking tape. So it's been a couple weeks since the last video section I made for this plushie tutorial, and I had some other stuff going on. I got sick for a week, and I was upset because I had ordered plastic canvas online instead of trying to go to a store, which worked out well because I could have gotten stranded on a different highway because my radiator hose that was purportedly fixed was not fixed, and my car overheated and broke down on the highway when I was going to my dental appointment. And I'd much rather have broken down where I did than on the other side of the highway on the southern exits. So I thought I was getting multiple sheets and I only got one. And it was a big one, and I was like, okay, but for some reason I thought there were 7 sheets, but apparently it's 7 squares per inch. Now I did write down what I'm doing in terms of cutting these. I got my little sheet here. For the legs, so I'm gonna just go through the process here. I've done 6 of the legs already, And I'm gonna, is it 2? No, it's 1.5. What the hell am I doing? 1.5 wide. Now you might notice that I have flipped the lid of my craft supplies box because the hot glue will get all over everything, and it's much easier if it's contained to the lid of the thing instead of being stuck to my table and everything else. It's also a handy tip, although I suppose if you have nothing else, you could use a piece of tin foil, although it would sort of trap the heat instead of and might burn your table. So you'd probably have to set down like a pot holder and then a piece of tin foil to contain the hot glue. Alright, so plastic canvas. I've got my 2 strips for the legs, and now I'm gonna clip it where I've allocated that I need to. I'm not going to cut it all the way because I don't want these pieces to be separate, but I do need to be able to roll them and have them bend. So you'll see what I'm doing here in a minute. Let me measure this. Wait, what's that? 3. Okay. I was really disappointed, actually, when I went to put the legs in the plushie, because I had intended that it was going to be sitting up off the table. But the body weighs quite a bit more than the legs do, and there isn't really any way that I can strengthen them so it won't sag down. But I mean, spiders tend to look like they're sitting up, they're just sort of on the ground anyway, so I think it'll work out fine. And in the very worst case, they could be hung from a string or placed on top of some kind of little clear cylinder of sorts. Ooh, the hot glue's probably getting pretty hot. I'm also upset that not only did I not have enough plastic canvas to do both of the plushies that I made, I have a lot less hot glue than I thought I did, and I need to get more of that too. So it's been all around kind of a crapshoot, and I was lucky that I had anything to do these with. And how hot is that? Is that gonna... better unplug it. That's the thing with the hot glue gun, is really freaking annoying. I have to keep constantly plugging it and unplugging it. That hurt. Oh. Is it hot? Alright. So, I didn't cut that one. I realized after doing 4 of them that I need to do 2 of them at once and join them before I stick them into the stuffed animal. So what I've got, this is weird because I had the masking tape over where the camera was before. Move it a little closer so I don't burn my hand. Okay. Glue stick. Hopefully I have enough to finish this video. Jesus Christ almighty. Alright. So I'm going to roll these. And I'm going to hot glue that together. I'm trying to get it tight enough so that it'll fit through the leg openings. Is that in the camera? Ooh. Just about ready to hopefully not burn the shit out of my fingers. I should have used the fat masking tape for that one. It's a little bit wider. That one doesn't actually have to go through because that's going to be in the body, but look at it. Okay. So the next piece that I'm just going to roll and hopefully not. Oh, that's right. I gotta put. See, I have a little piece that has some sticking out, and that actually needs to go on the inside. Just gonna roll it up as tight as I can. Alright, here we go. The tape so I don't burn myself quite as much. Get that down there to press it in. There. That's good. That tape's gonna come off in a couple minutes. And now I gotta plug this back in so it's starting to cool down. Okay. I would try to set this that way, but oh, now, yeah, see, when people are looking, it stays up. Usually it just falls over sideways. I had some previously that had like a little metal thing that worked a little better, but this is usually on its side because it usually does not cooperate this well. It's kind of really hard to explain what I'm doing because it's concentrating and whatnot. I feel like this worked well when I did the middle part before, but let me try it again. The middle. Just to tack it down. There. But it's alright if I get it pressed completely flat because it's going to pop back into round when I'm done. That's not actually that tight. I might not like that. Come on, buddy. Ow. Oh, that burnt. I'm not going to have any fingertips left when I'm done with this. Okay. Let's see that. Damn it. Okay. There we go. Now I won't get it stuck to the other end of the tape before I get it tight enough. Skills, people. I'm going to use a fat tape for that middle section. I have another roll of masking tape. There. Yeah, there we go. In retrospect, it would have made sense to use the fat tape for that whole section. But anyway, to get the other side. Could probably use another piece of that for that part. Okay. I'm gonna roll it. Okay. Unplug that again, it's getting too hot. There we go. Okay. Ouch. Probably would have been better if I had done it in 2 sections. So I just burnt the ever-loving crap out of my hand. Look at all that hot glue on there. Let it peel it off. Okay. And yes, this section too. So, I need to make this tighter because that's going to be down towards the point of the leg. And I want to make sure that it gets in there. Tighten that a little bit. Okay. I feel like I'm using a lot more tape than I was already. But let me get this. I have to get the next one too because I'm doing 2 of them at once because they're going to be joined in the middle. I'll get that real quick. There's like a couple minutes between where it's unplugged and needs to be plugged in again, and also to where it's like scalding and has to be unplugged. There we go. Okay, so that's one of them, and most of that tape's gonna come off in a second. I must spend time. 7 minutes. All right, I'm gonna do the other one, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've pulled the masking tape off of this one, and now I'm pulling the masking tape off of this other one, because I don't really want a lot of excess material on these when I go to stuff them down the legs. I feel like it's kind of a waste of masking tape, but I mean essentially masking tape just goes on, and like when you're painting and gets, or when you're doing a charcoal drawing and then it just gets pulled off and thrown out anyway, so it's sort of fulfilling its life purpose here instead of taping drawings to the walls in lieu of actual frames, which is what I usually do. Wow, this is like the most reusable bits that I've had. Ugh. I'm going to see why I want these in a minute. Also because masking tape can be expensive depending on when and where and what brand you get it. Okay. Come on, you bastard. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm going to attach these together. So what I want to do is I have to plug my hot glue back in again. Should get a big piece for these. There. Is that? Nope. I gotta wait a second. It's not warm enough, and I'm almost out of hot glue. Hopefully I have enough for this, or I will be very upset. I will be a sad panda. What's this? Okay, let's go this way. Just gonna kind of tack that in the middle to hold it. And I'm probably gonna burn the ever-living crap out of my hands with this part, but that's alright. Is that on camera? Okay. Sort of, because it doesn't really matter if they're straight. It's gonna be organic. Oh, yes. Gonna burn my hands real bad. Especially on the other side. There. I'll hold that on there for a minute. Okay, so I'm gonna get this side. This in there if I can get it. Sometimes they just fall out if they're not in all the way. See? Pain in my ass. Oh, I burned my hand on that way less than the last time I tried to do that. Okay, so once that's set, then I'm going to start doing the joints in the legs. So we'll give that a minute and come back. Okay, so I pulled the masking tape off of these, and I realized that this one, I had a little bit of like overhang on the centerpiece, so I trimmed it with the scissors while I was waiting for my hot glue to get hot, as I just plugged it back in again. So this is how the legs are going to be. This is going to be where the chest is. So I need to have the legs bend to come up. And this is going to be like a joint. I'm going to fill it with hot glue and tape it up. And I've discovered that these joints actually work best with 2 pieces of tape. So there we go. They usually bounce back, but I kind of want it to be at a severe angle if I can help it. But when it cools, it's going to loosen up a little bit. Okay. Just trying to hold it in a position for a second. Where's the next joint? Okay, so the next joint comes down. Just kind of squeezing a pile of glue into there. I like to try to reuse the dirty tape for the joints. There we go. And I'm just kind of holding that. And because these aren't really coming out perfectly straight, it gives them more of an organic situation. There. This one's going to come down. Cut it. It's kind of cut weird. A little more flex in the joint. But it come down like that. I need new tape. This is all old tape, but a couple pieces of newer tape. My fingertips hurt. Alright. Is it on camera? Alright, so I'm going to bend that one a little bit, and I'm going to unplug that because it's probably getting too hot. Bend that up. Yeah, it's melting the plastic. The joint just popped open. It's melting. But it should be still. One of these I actually broke when I jammed it into the leg. There we go. But it can't really go anywhere, so it's fine. There we go. Good as new. So these might be a little crunchy because some of that tape's not coming off of there, but that should be alright. So I have a leg truss. And I have to do the one on the other side too because I've joined these together. I don't really want that to be at that. I guess that one can come forward. So, okay, these can go a little bit. They don't have to be perfectly straight, but they do need to. Oh, it actually needs the glue on the other side. Ow, that's hot. Fuck. Just burnt the shit out of my hand. I just realized I'm supposed to have the glue on this side. That is still really hot, even though I just unplugged it. I felt that all the way in my left ear. That was really hot. Oh man, that fucking hurt. Ooh, that's pretty toasty. Look at that. This is why this should be left to a professional. Don't let your kid do this by themselves. Oh my god, that hurt a lot. Okay. Had my hand slammed in a sliding door when I was working at the deli. My manager did it by accident. And it hurt really bad. And if that was ever a case to swear on counter, that would have been it. And I managed to refrain because I had been practicing by saying things like weak instead of fuck. So I had a completely mashed finger and I did not even swear. It's a proud moment that will probably never be repeated because it really fucking hurt. With that at a steeper angle, so I'm going to try to hold it in place while that glue hardens. see, the legs are not exactly symmetrical. It gives them that randomness that exists in the universe. There we go. It seems that I have had just enough hot glue because I have one left and this is just about pushed all the way through. Bitter fingers stuck in my head because it was just playing on my computer before I shut the sound off. Sort of apropos to my situation right now too. Ah, that fucking hurts. I'm gonna have to go downstairs and get some of the A&D ointment for that. If the stuff I have in my area is not sufficient. Oh, I need another piece that wasn't in the wrong way. It's still pretty toasty. I gotta unplug that again. Okay. There we go. Alright. This is really, really not that's going the same direction. Okay. So I've got to let this... Well, I can still put it in there hot. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna find out which one is the hot. This is... Wait, yeah. Okay, this is... Ooh, that one's hot. Okay. So this is... Alright, so I've got this stuffed. And I'm figuring out which way I want this to go. This needs to be angled towards the front. So I want this leg... Why is that one not bending? So I want this to go in this direction. And I'm going to flip it over and keep it that way. So this is the hot one, so I'm going to do this leg first. Now, when I pull this open, I've got the ends of the leg pieces that I've sewn on and clipped open. And I'm going to have to angle it this way so I can get to the edge of the table here. Let me make sure I'm in focus here. Okay. So I've got these edges to the legs, and I'm going to make sure my pathway is open by sticking the paintbrush in there. And I get the end of the foot in there. Now what I want to do is that I know that I'm trying to keep the seam towards the bottom and to not have it twist. And I found that the best way to get these in here is to well, I gotta push it in a little bit further, but basically it's to shimmy the fabric down, and it's easier once it gets in there more. See, I've got it a little bit crunched up there, and then I can kind of pull it till it gets straight. But once I've got enough, I can actually use my whole hand to pull the fabric down. And it's just a combination of pushing it from the inside and sliding it down again. Oh, this is like the fastest it's ever gone. I'm going to adjust the seam a little bit. Oh, this is already all the way at the end. Am I in the... So I've got it... I think I need a hair. I think that's one of mine. It was like a longer white hair. I've got some of those. Alright. Just smoothing the fabric down the leg truss here. And what I want to do is actually pop this joint through to the other side of the leg here where the seam is. So I need a little bit more give in the fabric. Okay, there. Now I've got that joint there. You can see where it's bent. So the other side is going to be a little bit more challenging. And I figured out when I did the other one that I had attached before, it was really difficult for these ones when I was trying to glue them together when it was already in there. So I'm going to actually... Why am I out of breath? Because this is flexible, I can actually bend it and it's going to look a little pretzel-y. This is... Okay, so this is the bottom of it right here. And I can see that I've got this sort of loop going. Let me move that up a little bit. There we go. I'm gonna check the focus. Okay, so I've got this kind of loop going with this plastic canvas, and I need to make sure that this is gonna come through there all right. And I thought, wow, I should have actually put the trusses in and then sewn the legs on, but it makes more sense, even though this is somewhat difficult, to have all the sewing done first. So let me get this pop through there. You see how that's all twisted? It's gonna come right when I get it stuffed all the way in there. So now I have to start shimmying the fabric while holding this. Certain skills might be useful for this. There we go. Pull that. I'm going to actually use these tabs to pull that up a little bit. And where's my seam? Try to rotate the seam around. There we go. It just kind of slides right on in there. Now, it might seem like it makes more sense to use wire and not mess with all of this nonsense and the hot glue. But the point of this is so that there isn't a bunch of metal in here that could poke through and cut somebody. So while these are basically plush art pieces, they are suitable for children to play with. The only really hard thing that's on the surface of this is the sequin behind this little fuzzy ball that I made the eyeball out of. It's like one of those little pom-poms, because that's what I had. I'm going to get this all the way through. Come on, get in there. I'm just trying to pop that leg joint all the way through. There we go. Okay. So you can see that the inside is made up of these cross pieces of the plastic where they're joined together. And my original goal was that he was going to be able to sit up on them, but it weighs too much. So it's going to have to just, unless I can somehow get these to, maybe if I sew them, if I sew the knee joints, he might be able to pop up on top of them. It might just have to be one of those. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, I guess I can't. Okay, so unless I can figure out how to bend these joints more and get him to sit up on the table, that is not actually going to support its own weight. But this is how Sleipnir is going to look. And I'm going to sew this up, but I'm going to make another video segment. I got to get a little bit more stuffing in there, and I'm going to get the sewing box out. Alright, so I've got this new pack of needles here, because I had like none left. I'm going to choose my fighter here. Alright. I just realized that when I started this video, I was going to put this on Patreon. But in the couple of weeks since I began this, I've deleted my Patreon. So if I started out this video saying, welcome to CATtheMinion Patreon, I lied. I have removed it. And this is going to be on open YouTube. Oh, damn it, I just cut the knot. I have to do it again. So that's happened. Okay. So I'm going to start this and get it attached. There we go. Alright. I'm going to leave that attached there for a second. So I'm going to just stuff his belly. I've got some extra stuff that I left out from the big box because I duct taped it back together. Just going to pad his little pony butt here. And stomach. Try to get these legs popped through the joints the way they're supposed to be. Give me the... Alright, that looks pretty good. This might be too much stuffing, but let me see. That's probably just about the right amount. Put some more in the butt. So basically, I'm just going to... I don't know what I did with the little friggin'... Oh, here it is. Safety pin. So I want to kind of hold this. I can see where my seam is supposed to be. And I'm just going to give it a little pinchy pinch here with the safety pin to hold it while I sew the top part. I feel like this could be stuffier. So I've got another little pop of stuffing here. And I'm just gonna
sew it together.
Now, ideally, the seam line would be smaller, but because of the trussing, I can't just have a pinhole to put the stuffing through. Unfortunately, since I only have half as much of this crap as I need, I can't finish the brown one right now. And also, I need to, he's just pinned together down here. I need to pull out the stuffing and redo his eyeballs because they're kind of janky. And it doesn't look right. So, like wall-eyed brown chenille Sleipnir. So I need to redo the eyes on that anyway, but I don't have enough plastic canvas or hot glue. Where's mine? I have one single stick of hot glue left. Where the hell did it go? That's all I have left. So I've got to get more plastic canvas and more hot glue. And in theory, I should buy some more of the little sequins and the little pom-poms. The ones that I used actually came with a pair of decorate your own ugly Christmas socks that somebody gave me. And I did not decorate the socks, I saved the decorations as miscellaneous craft items. And that's what I had. Because I didn't have any more buttons or little friggin' doodads or whatever for the eyeballs. But I like those little pom-poms. I just need to get some that match. I don't think it's going to do well for Sleipnir to have bright orange eyeballs with mismatched sequins. So this video is probably going to be really long when I'm all done with it. And I really wanted to have both of them done. Although, in the interest of time, I really feel like I just want to put the video out. And we'll see. I really should have 2 of them. I'm miffed that I didn't have enough supplies after trying to order some online, and then I was like, ah, dang it, I forgot to get the hot glue. So I'm gonna... I have a cleaning project that I've been trying to get to and have to keep putting it off because I have all the other things. And I have to get that done, but I might actually take a trip to the Joanna of Fabric and get some stuff. Because I mean, I could make some more of these in theory and just offer a few colors in option, but I don't want to have like tons of yardage that I don't need hanging around, which is why these are actually going to be made to order. These ones are going to be for sale, just because they're available. But if I make any more, they're going to be made to order. So I mean, in theory, I just go to the store and find some fabric, and it'd be like whatever yardage of fleecy type thing is on clearance or matches the sort of color thing that people want. I had some pink fleece stuff, but I got rid of it. Some extra. I don't know if this would work in like a sateen material either. That could be tighter. Has a little... There. That looks pretty good. Almost done. So I'm not sure how that would work in terms of coloration, but I mean, there's guaranteed to be something pretty close. It would make more sense to use a solid color than like a pattern, but who knows. I mean, I also should get some different yarn, because this brown yarn is not really it. Oh man, I should have used some like fancy surgical stitch for that. That would have been cool. Okay, so I'm gonna run this thread. Ooh, is that still open? No, it's not open there. I'm gonna run this thread, if I can get it through there, up to where the tail is to hide the ends of it better. Come on. It should be a little bit longer if I'm actually gonna successfully tie it off. But, oh, I broke the needle. What the hell, man? That was brand new. Failure. Failure, Will Robinson. I can't believe that. I just fucking bought that. It's a good thing they sent me 3 packages of them. Unbelievable. That is just rude. I can't get through there. Use one of the new ones. Unbelievable. What the hell, Singer? Your stuff's supposed to be good. Saw that too. I just opened that package of needles. Incredulous. Okay. There we go. Do they temper the steel? Like, what the crap? Alright. So, I need to... I just get some fabric between one of these and the other one, then I could tie it off and it'll be fine. There we go. Oh, that hurt my neck. Okay. So I've got this, and I'm just going to tie it off. There. All right, square knot.
Boom.
Done. There's a little bit of like hot glue threads stuck in the hair. Pop the ear back up a little bit. Oh, why is there hot glue strings fucking everywhere? God. Let me move this out of the way for a second. Alright, here we go. So I checked my pricing, and the size of this means that these plushies are $40 before shipping. Oh, the neck thing's coming undone. I am having a complete
meltdown over here. That's not working. There you go. Okay.
there. Supposed to sit on the seam. There we go. Okay. So it's a little heavy for the legs, but the full effect is still in effect here.
Bottom legs.
You get the camera off the stand and get in here. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with here. Sleipnir Plushie. Spattery legs. Face planting. There. Could have that authentic coming to get you. Authentic clopping noise. There we go. So you just have to find, when you get one, when you inevitably must have one for yourself, just find something clear maybe. Boom. Propped up. So some of these legs stiffer than others. This is number 1. So this entire piece here, soft and fuzzy, really thick fabric. He does have a butthole label because I forgot to sew it into his leg first. Number 1, tan. It's got black fuzzy ball eyes with green sequins. Is that gonna... There we go. The green sequin. You can barely see it. A little edge of green there. I clipped the bangs too short by accident. The ears are a little bit too small. But you could own the very first one, and is now complete. So $40 before shipping. I have in my catalog, I have the shipping grid for such an item, and I don't have prices for outside the United States. I'm not sure what it would cost or how it would get there, and I don't think there would be a tracking number either. So especially with COVID right now, I'm not sure how that would work, but there would have to be some sort of international shipping negotiation, which is why everything but a single chapbook pack, because I know how much that costs to ship globally, Everything in my catalog has shipping prices for United States, and then anything outside of that, again, it would have to be a discussion, because I wouldn't be able to put a tracking number on it. So this is the finished product here. I started with the little paper mock-up. So the brown one, this is some fabric that I had. Some chenille fabric. It's impossible to work with, never again. So the ears are the right size, but they're very floppy. I'm going to pull his eyes off and redo them because this thing is wall-eyed. The nose is kind of pointy because it was hard to see where the seams were. So this is number 2. All in all, pretty similar, sort of chocolatey brown overall. And the tag is on the back of the leg. And I can't finish it right now, so I might get, well, I gotta redo the eyeballs, because that's just not right. And I can't really sell it like that. But this one is number 2. This is experimentation in duplication, testing the relocation of the label to the back leg. Much better than having a butthole label. And fabric tests, so chenille is not it. It's a little harder to see a darker material in terms of the seams, but you can see it's pretty much the same deal. So it's really soft too. It's hard to stop touching that. And then I just have blue eyes on this with like a darker turquoisey sequin, because I didn't think I had 2 more of the black pom-poms that were over there. So I need to get some. I kind of like them instead of like real eyeballs. So I'm going to probably keep doing them like this. I didn't cut the bangs as short because that was a little bit of a mistake. And then you can see just, I just used a different ribbon that came with that sock decorating kit. So this is the brown one. It's gonna be done when I can get some more plastic canvas and more hot glue. And it will also be $40. And then all the other ones after that, I'll know what I'm doing. And I may do, I may put out the template and instructions for this. But it's probably going to be, I think it's going to be like $10 because it's of the amount of work that goes into setting up the instructions and making sure the patterns are right, and there's little drawings to show how it's put together. So I would consider releasing the pattern for this, but keep in mind that if you do use the plastic canvas and the hot glue, you're gonna burn your hands. So it's up to you. You can use wire, you can leave them as sort of a squiddy horse here. You can adapt the pattern and give them real legs if you want to. So there's that. And also don't forget that you can fully purchase Sleipnir prints on my DeviantArt, and then I have the full range of merchandise on my cafe press. There's a bumper sticker, there's towels and blankets and towels in little bags. Alright, so this is the end of the how-to video. You can see we have full spider action here. We have full squid action over here because of a parts online purchase error. And then, so if, again, DeviantArt Cafe Press, you'll see those. I would be adding the template to my catalog here, and like with the template for the lotus flower, I'd be putting a downloadable version on DeviantArt too. So you could either email me and get a PDF when I have that ready and available and post it, and it will be in the catalog when I remember to redo that. And you can always email me, thecatcamebackatcamp@gmail.com. These are going to be in my catalog where the stuffed animals go and the made-to-order items. Boom, right here. Stuffed animals. This is a medium-sized stuffed animal. This is a large-sized stuffed animal. This one is at least 150 because it costs a lot to make that. These wings, or yeah, the wings and the tail are trussed with the plastic canvas. It's large sheets and then rolled up bits in there. Is the head? No, the head's not trussed, but a lot of detail work, hand sewing the feet. So those are a lot more expensive. And so that was a large. These are medium. I did a pony that was about 32 inches tall, be about 6 times the size of these. And that was a large plushie, and I think that one's probably a 300 or something. It's listed in here, but a lot more expensive. And then eventually I'll have a little one that's only going to be, it'll be probably about yay big. Maybe a little bigger when I make my own. That one's one that I bought when I was in college. So, I'm going to eventually have a small one. But right now I have medium, I have the large, and I have the extra large available. So check all those out. Make sure to watch this space. If you're not already subscribed to my YouTube, go ahead and like, share, subscribe, comment. Check out my playlists tab, my discussion tab. Stay groovy, and we'll see you later. Bye. And just reiterating again that I deleted my Patreon, so this is not going to be on Patreon. Okay, bye.